What's more important for learning Latin, grammar or vocabulary? In this video, I'll look at grammar, then vocabulary, and see which one is most important for you as a learner. Grammar is how a language works, how sentences are structured, and how words change based on what they are used for. In Latin, there is so much grammar to learn, it can feel very overwhelming. So why do we need grammar at all? Well, Latin is an inflected language, and the endings do change based on who is doing which verb and what the nouns are doing in the sentence. The endings tell me a lot of information that you do need to know. As you move through Latin, grammar becomes very important, especially when you're tackling complex passages. People like Cicero like to have long flowing sentences, and if you don't have a good grasp of grammar, you might struggle to understand what he is trying to say. Quite often, verbs will be left very far to the end and there'll be lots of complex clauses in the way between your main subject and your verb. So having a sense of grammar is important. The mood of your verbs can change and the voice of your verbs can change, and so can the subjects throughout the sentence. So it's important in the basic sense of knowing who's doing which verb, and it's also important as you get further along to understand more complex passages. Vocabulary, on the other hand, is important for the very basics. If you don't know what a word means, it doesn't matter whether you know what the endings are necessarily. If you don't know the root stem of a verb, you know who's doing it and what voice it's in, that's fantastic. But if you don't know what the root word means, you're not going to be able to write anything down. So for sense, vocabulary is very, very important. On the other hand, if you know what the root word means, but you're not sure of the grammar, you can take a guess, and it will be an educated guess because hopefully you'll know the context of the passage. So if you're not 100% sure who is doing the verb, you look at the sentences around it, and you look at what you've been told about the passage in the context section in order to help you have an educated guess based on the vocabulary that you know. So in this way, if you only have time for one, vocabulary is super important. I always say if you don't know what the word means, you can't even guess at the grammar. But vocabulary is also important for life outside of Latin, if there is such a thing. Expanding your Latin vocabulary will also improve your vocabulary in English, but also in so many modern foreign languages. As I've said in so many of my videos, Latin is the root of English, but also French and Italian and Spanish and Romanian and Portuguese. So by improving your Latin vocabulary, you're also improving your mind for many other subjects. So as well as its implications for Latin, it's also very important for modern usage outside of Latin. Also, your Latin vocabulary is just fun for as you're walking around. If you're lucky enough to live in a place where the Romans have been and you have some inscriptions left, or you go to a museum and you can see some examples of carvings, you can figure out what those carvings say if your Latin vocabulary is good, especially because on carvings they often miss off the endings of things. They just give you the root stem. That's to save space because marble's expensive and the time of the carver is expensive, so you shorten your message. If you know what the root of the word means, you can figure out what those carvings say, you can figure out whose tombstone that is, or why this building was built. So just for pure enjoyment, vocabulary is key. So the question was, grammar or vocabulary? Well, really, you do need both. I'm not going to lie to you and say you can pick one or the other. Grammar is important for, on the whole, especially academic Latin learning. But if you're doing this for fun, or you're doing this for not just exams, but on the whole, vocabulary learning is going to be essential. And that's why I'm bringing out a vocabulary tester. It's something I've been wanting to create for a while, and I've got the opportunity to. Now, it's coming soon. It hasn't yet been fully built, but we are on the way with it. So if you're interested in that, do sign up at the link in the description below, just for emails about when that is going to be coming out. It might be a little while, but eventually that will come out, and I'm very excited about it. I do think it's one of the most important things that you can spend your time on for learning Latin, and it's something most people struggle with. Vocabulary was the thing I struggled most with when I learnt Latin. There are some excellent ones out there, but I'm just really proud that I'm going to bring out my own. So do go and sign up at the link in the description below if you'd like any news about when that's coming out, and maybe have the opportunity to be a beta tester for us in our first iteration of this vocab tester. That would be really helpful to get your feedback. So grammar versus vocabulary, well, they're both important. You're going to have to learn grammar, you're going to have to learn vocabulary, but if you have 10 minutes a day to spend on one or the other, I would always say vocab every time. Which do you think's more important? Grammar for the sense or vocabulary for the meaning? Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you next time on Bambasbat.